Hi Nick, here we are with the feedback for this coming week. And as I mentioned in my email, I want you to focus on two specific things this week. And I'm going to cover them both in one video, mostly because we need to compare Thumbman and Nixster so that you start to differentiate better between the two for their faces. But the first thing is the very sketchy circly circles that I need you to do. So I'm just going to add in a layer here so that I don't end up drawing over any of the lads. If you look at what you're doing here, helps if I use the right pencil. In each face, you're using a single line, and it's really tripping you up because you're not building any muscle memory. You're doing a single line, which means you have to get the shape right first time, but you're not getting the shape consistent, as you've noticed. And I think it's starting to frustrate you a little bit because you don't have that control that you're searching for. If you go in and use circly circles, you go over and over the shape and you're reaching more to get to a specific shape. So if we think about Thumbman, and this is where the two objectives for the week come together, we need to use the circly circles and multiple lines for each face shape so that you get muscle memory for that particular face shape. Because Thumb has to have his own face shape distinct from Nixster. So if we look at Thumb, I'm going to go back to here, all right? If you look at Thumb here, he needs to have a rounder face. So if we think of Thumb as like this, a kind of circular face like this, and then you can put in his eyes and his nose like that, and maybe a nice wide mouth to start to give Thumb his own personality, okay? And then his ear's going to be up like this, and then his long body can come into it. Whereas if we look at Nixster, let's have a look at him. Nixster has got a long face. So you see how I drew it here? I've drawn him with a long oval face like this. Think of it almost as the, the bowl of a spoon, that kind of the spoon shape. So Nixter's got more of a spoon-shaped face, and Thumbman's got a much rounder disc-shaped face. And so we need to get this, and you can see how I'm using the multiple lines to reach longer and longer and longer to try and get a shape. And then we can do this and put in his features. But I don't put in the features until I've got the shape. And that's what's important at the moment. Because you can see even last week, it's just a single line, and then if the shape's not right, the shape's not right. So you're limiting yourself by using that single line. Okay, so hopping in to this week, all right? If we go back to Thumbman here, let me just, I'll copy each face that you did here. So if we've got Thumbman like this for the first face, if we go for the rounder face like this, and then we've got his eyes are kind of like that, and we've got them looking up there, we've got his nose, we've got his mouth, okay? Then from there, it's a matter of what happens with his body. And you're going to decide that. But the face part is round, okay? So we've got this round disc for his face. Then let's have a look at this one in the middle. Again, we've got a round disc. We're going to get the crosshairs kind of like this. But he's looking down like this, so he's got his eyelids like that, and he's looking down, and we've got his mouth here. So again, we've got the ear at the end of the eye line, but we've got this disc shape instead of the long-shaped face, and then we can kind of rough out where his body would stroke neck would be below that. And obviously, we're not going to probably leave this chin line in because this is Thumbman, so when it comes to outlining, we're not going to leave in a chin like that. We're going to erase, but we need to start with the roundness so that we're creating something consistent. And then with this one on the end, again, we need our nice round multi-lined face, and then we need our crosshairs, our nose, and we put the eyes in, mouth. Okay, now a word about the mouth before we move on. Look at the space that we've got here between the base of the nose and the mouth. It's a lot. And that's not really working for you, especially with Thumb. What I would really like to see with Thumb is you bring his mouth closer to his nose and make his mouth wider. So if we bring the mouth closer and wider, again, that's going to give us that more distinct Thumb man look, okay, that we're looking for, because we really need to distinguish between the lads now. Okay, so if we have the sort of round, disc-shaped beginning of his face, we've got an ear here, we put his nose in, eyes, however we do them, and then if we give him a wide mouth like this, quite close to the bottom, quite close to his nose, we just start to give him more of a personality of his own. He becomes a lot more distinctive, and then we can go in and put in his thumb-like body. Because if you think about a thumb is a broad kind of, it's not a pointy thing, it's a flat, broad thing. So having a wide mouth, a flat disc-like or kind of broad, round face builds that thumb kind of persona. Okay, so that's really what I'd like to see is, I'm going to go for green here to just kind of emphasize that. Okay, so this is what I'd like to see with Thumb, the roundness, the ear, a wide mouth like this, quite close to his nose, so that we build his personality. Let's duck in and have a look at Nixster, okay? So here we are with Nixster. I'm going to shift back to the red. If you look at what you had here, can you see again, as I mentioned before, you're using the single line, but you're doing reasonably well with that single line, getting the more oval, spoon-shaped face for Nixster. The only place that it falls down is, say, here, where it gets a bit kind of broad across here and pointy at the bottom. But overall, Nixster is he's getting to be more distinctive than Thumb. So let's go in and take a look at what we're going to do with Nixster. So again, I need you to do the multiple lines, okay, like this, and getting him nice and long and narrow. And then don't be afraid to shift his features over to left or right. If his nose is, if he's looking to the left and his nose is pointing that way, then his features are going to be closer on that side. So we're going to see a bit more of his face between this eye and the ear than between this eye and the ear. Do you see what I mean? And that's just because his head is turned, okay? So if you want to leave Nixster with a fairly long upper lip, so leaving this space quite big between the base of his nose and the top of his mouth, that's fine, because that will distinguish him from Thumb Man. So I don't have a problem with that if you leave this fairly large gap between his nose and his mouth. But the thing to remember is that if his face is turned, say, in this direction, where his nose is pointing, then we're going to see this ear, but we won't see this ear. So here, what you've done is you've pointed his nose that way, but you've shown us this ear, and you set his face across to that side, his features across to that side. So the inconsistency there is actually we probably wouldn't see the ear on this side at all. What we would see is the ear on this side, because this is the side which is closest to us. So that's something that you need to watch out for. Then in terms of Nixster, you've been doing pretty well with his hair. So I'm quite happy with that. It's just a matter of continuing with that. And then if you imagine what his neck might be doing, that often does help. So if he's got his tie like this and his collar, then it just, if you imagine it, if you just pop the tie and the collar at the base of his chin like that, it helps you to continue his face. So let's do the one in the middle, this one here. Again, we need to do multiple lines. We're going to do our crosshairs like this. He's looking upwards, so we're going to do upwards like this. We're going to get his nose in. We're going to have his mouth in like that. And we've got him looking up hair going upwards like this. And we can narrow his face down if we want to a little bit, and then bring in his collar, his tie, this side of his collar like that. It just helps us to start to imagine him a bit more. Okay, this one, final one here. Again, multiple lines, multiple lines, multiple lines to get him nice and narrow. Don't be afraid to let his face take up quite a lot of this oval that we've started with. So if he's looking down like this, we're going to put his nose in like there. We've got his eyes. And I think you can afford to make the eyes a little bit bigger if you want to. So we can do him like this. And ear goes on there. If you want Nixster to have a slightly smaller ear, I totally understand that. That's fine. And then hair like this. So that's what I want you to focus on this week, is very much this multiple lines, long spoon shape for Nixster, and round disc shape with a wide mouth for Thumb.